Hello everyone, welcome to Sunya IAS and welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we are going to talk about a topic which must be very close to all of your hearts because you consume this particular topic so much. This is OTT platforms, right? What is OTT? Over the top. Over the top, right? This is in direct contrast to the DTH. DTH technology was direct to home. Now, I don't need to tell you what OTT platforms are because they've been in so much news, but just to give a little bit of relevance to it and a little bit of more understanding, these are platforms like Netflix, Hotstar, and these kind of platforms, Amazon Play, and all that. So, these are gaining a lot of relevance with massive internet penetration. They are actually getting onto the screens of any and every person that is there, and their subscriptions are also not very expensive, so people end up buying them a lot. Okay, this is like 199 per month, 299 per month. Sometimes first trial is free, first month is free, right? So that is there. Now, OTT platforms, the topic, the regulation is important from two papers. First, let me tell you about the notes aspect of it because you ask it in the comments, where will we find the notes? You will find the notes either in the Shunya books, which you can order online. You can give us a call, you can give us, you can visit the websites and order, that is up to you. Or you can make handwritten notes from the session itself. You can make handwritten notes from the session itself because if you ask for PDF won't be provided. Either you go for the Shunya books or you go for the handwritten notes. That is one. Second thing that is there, the OTT platforms as a topic is important for two papers. One is of course GS2, and in GS2 it is important for governance and the kind of regulations that OTT platforms are going through. What were the regulations earlier? What are the recent acts that are enacted for OTT regulation and etc. Even for GS3, it is important to understand how various sectors, let's say the telecommunication sector, the entertainment sector, how it is evolving with the OTT. So it can be used somewhere or the other, and it's all about interlinkaging the knowledge from one paper to another. So that is about OTT platforms. Now let's start with what OTT platforms are. See, you can write down OTT platforms. They are online platforms which provide direct access to audio-visual content on a single platform, right? Diverse range. So earlier it used to be your television, right, which had various channels. Now it is one application that is providing you access to various web series. Earlier, you remember there used to be Star Sports is one channel, then there is Sony TV, then there would be news channels which will be separate. Here every genre is covered within the same app, that is OTT. And there has been phenomenal growth when we talk about OTT platforms, and you can use these data, this particular data. See, growth wise, India is the largest and fastest growing OTT market. Okay. Not largest, don't write largest, the fastest growing OTT market. And in terms of the consumers, it is going to soon be at fourth number, right? So it's the fastest growing and it is soon going to be at fourth number when it comes to the consumption of OTT content. Now, when we come to benefits, even before writing the benefits or showing them to you or explaining them to you, just think about what the benefits can be. Earlier televisions vis-a-vis current day OTT platforms, what can be the benefits? there is larger accessibility, there are more options that are available to us, right? So all these benefits you can find here. So for the creators, you know, for the creators, people nowadays, they start from YouTube and eventually they land up, let's say, a special on Amazon, a special on Netflix, etc., and they make their careers out of it because they are able to target the audience which they want to reach, right? So for example, if there is a stand up comedian, the recommendations work in such a manner that their ads and their recommendations, the recommendation of their special will go to only those people who watch stand up comedy, so their revenue will be very nicely targeted, right? So it leads to micro targeting. Then it also leads to low costs overall. As I told you, the subscription is just 199 per month, and this is nothing when you compare it to, let's say, a movie ticket. Although movie ticket has its own reasons and its benefits and everything, but this is nothing as compared to a movie ticket, right? So that is there. It also leads to wider access, right? It leads to wider access. As of 2022, about 119 million people have taken subscriptions and used. These are official. And you all know that whenever a series is released, there are leaks that happen, and there are, free episodes that people can watch somehow. So these are officially registered people that are there, about 12 crore people. And OTT platforms have lesser regulations, and this is something on which now the government is working, that the regulations should be on par with the censors that are there at the movie level and at the broadcasting level. So government is working at that. We'll talk about it. Overall, for customers, there is more connectivity. It is cost friendly for customers, and it is convenient also. Although there is this debate that, the OTT platforms have also led to the breaking of family structure, because earlier family used to watch TV sitting together. But this is what happens when people slowly progress towards development and industrial development. So this is all part and parcel of it. Okay. So convenience is there. People can watch whatever they want to watch, right? And they have a wider choice as well. In fact, there is so much choice of content that people spend more time in choosing rather than actually watching, right? But there is need to regulate the OTT platforms, because with every benefit comes a corollary of its issues as well. So as you can see, socially it is very easy to put up objectionable content. Overall, there is this trend of thumbnailing things in a very objectionable manner. Thumbnails have become very clickbaity, very click worthy, and there are obscene thumbnails, and there are obscene scenes in the OTT, which, because everyone has a separate device of their own, so that is why there is no regulation on that, right? So that becomes problematic. So it impacts the youth is free to watch whatever they want. Cultural appropriation also happens. So when the children are exposed to a lot of content from a very early on age, it leads to their beliefs being set up in a certain manner, right? So certain communities can be stereotyped in certain way, because who are the people who are creating these series? They are just human beings. They have their own biases. In fact, they are using art as a medium to get forward their own narratives in front of the world, and those narratives are being consumed by young minds, and sorry, and that is leading to corruption of these young minds as well, right? And there can be multiple interpretations overall, right? Sorry, pardon me, not feeling too well today, right? Okay. Now economically, it has led to loss of businesses for especially the movie hall owners of tier 2, tier 3 cities, whose livelihood was dependent on mass media, these OTT platforms have reduced the number of takers for their halls. Then foreign companies can also influence the overall foreign companies can influence the overall narrative. In fact, the funding which comes for these particular web series or these particular movies, it is very important to see where it is coming from. And it is a discouragement to filmmakers, especially the small filmmakers, because their work does not get recommended as such, although it has provided visibility also. But overall it discourages, because if it is not there on the big screen, it leads to impacts. And politically it can be agenda based, it can lead to some distortion of facts, and in fact that is the reason why government is coming up with a fact checking unit. Government is coming up with a fact checking unit. So that is there. Now this is the need. Okay. But when you regulate the OTT platforms to a very large extent, it actually leads to surveillance. It actually leads to curbing of free speech and expression. Right? So we will study about that, and in your answers it needs to reflect in this manner, that freedom of speech under Article 19 clause 1 will be restricted if every and any expression of art is being regulated. So earlier it was the censor board, even today it is there. But for OTT, that was one creative space, and if it even that will be regulated, there will be big problems. Then it infantilizes citizens. So government will decide what the citizens should watch and what they should not watch. Why is this so? This should not be happening, right? So it infantilizes citizens. Then the scale of content will also is so huge that it will require a lot of expenditure on the part of the government to actually regulate the OTT platforms. Expenditure will be massive. And even the existing frameworks like the IT Act and various acts that are there in place, they are very haphazard, and already there are issues like sedition and everything that are going on. So having a proper surveillance on these OTT platforms can be counterproductive. And overall it also curbs growth, because the an artist cannot be thinking that I should make the content that should not be censored. An artist should be thinking I should make content, right? So that is there. Now before 2020, you can see these three acts, the two acts and one Supreme Court regulation. So the IT Act 2000 was there, which used to penalize people for annoying messages or grossly offensive messages that people send through digital medium, right? So if someone is using a digital medium to convey a message which someone finds annoying or grossly offensive, they can be jailed. In fact, this provision was so inappropriate and could be used in such a wide manner that it was struck down. Section 66A, it was called. Section 66A was struck down in Shreya Singhal case. Earlier, this was the regulation, right? Shreya Singhal case. Because it is very subjective, right? I can be annoyed at something that someone has made. But does that mean that that person will go to jail because I am annoyed? No. That becomes a surveillance state again. That becomes a very intolerant state, right? That is there. Then IPC 1860, various provisions which protect the sovereignty. And if any creator is creating such a piece which is hampering our sovereignty, maybe revealing some official secret, maybe anything like that, then that person can be penalized. So that was also there. This is pre 2020. And eventually Supreme Court also instructed that OTT is getting very violent. There is a lot of violence, nudity, abuse, even rapes, etc. are being shown. And when you watch something on TV, you think that it is somehow, it happens somewhere. So such gross violence being shown, and it normalizes the violence for people, right? That is problematic. So Supreme Court said that there have to be regulations for managing this kind of violence, etc. Then IT rules and ethics code for the digital media 2021, they were brought forward, and you need to understand the provisions, the features. See, it mandated certain things. It mandated, first of all, that OTT platforms have to self regulate themselves. Okay, OTT platforms have to self regulate themselves, but if and they are safe, they are given a safe harbor. If they are providing decent content, they are given a safe harbor, their content will not be taken down. But if they are violating the provisions, then their safe harbor provisions will be taken away, right? Another thing was that any indecent content that the central government finds has to be taken away, taken down within 24 hours by the OTT platform. In fact, recently there was this singer who posted an incomplete map of India, right? You might have heard of him. And within 24 hours, his songs were taken down from various, you know, applications. So that was there. Then there has to be self classification of content in 5 categories according to the 2021 rules. Self classification in 5 categories. So there's A, these kind of 5 categories are there, and there has to be self classification. So right now there's no concept of censor board. It is coming up somehow, and we'll talk about it, how it is coming up. But right now there's no concept of censor board for the OTT platforms, right? Then there need to be parental locks for content that is for 13 plus audience. So earlier at one point of time it used to be 18 plus, then it came down to 16 plus, now it is 13 plus content. So any content which is marked 13 plus, there has to be a parental lock for it, so that children cannot access that content, because parents often give their phone to children to play games or whatever, and children should not come across this kind of content at such a young age. Then content not to be posted by platforms is the content which is against public sentiments, against national integration and some basis. Then overall, whatever complaint is there about the violation of code of ethics has to be seen within 15 days, has to be completed within 15 days. So content has to be taken down within 24 hours, and the complaint has to be resolved within 15 days. Then grievance redressal mechanism, there is a 3-tier grievance redressal mechanism that has been established. Then overall, it is suggested by these rules, that the code, that there has to be a self-regulatory body. So even though OTT platforms are advised to regulate themselves, even then there has to be a body headed by the judiciary that will help them to self-regulate their own self. And there has to be an oversight mechanism which is going to be under Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, right? Not under Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology, no, Ministry of Information and Broadcasting. So these rules came up with in 2021. They had some issues. Such details are not required for your answer, but you just have to see how these rules have evolved. So if you see the evolution, there was lack of consultation, like various acts have been criticized on this. Like initially the national education policy was also criticized. Then politicization risk, what is to be censored, what is not to be censored is an issue. Vague penal provisions are there, and it's a domain breach. We are, as a government, we are entering into the creative field, which is not the characteristic of a democracy. And overall, freedom of expression is being restricted. Incentivization of growth is not happening. In fact, the reverse is happening. and right to privacy overall is being reduced. Within 24 hours, you are forcing the platforms to actually take down the content. On the basis of these issues, further IT amendment rules were taken forward. So, apart from the way ahead, just see the IT amendment rules, which again are problematic that way, but they have recently come up, so we will talk about it. See, the features are that it has now become obligatory for these intermediaries, that is Hotstar, Netflix, the OTT platforms, etc., to comply with the directions of the central government in the digital media ethics code, right? And within this, a very specific thing has been said, that no false information is to be shared by any OTT platform. And who will decide that whether this information is false information or not? It is a fact checking unit that is coming up. And this is what I was telling you in the beginning of the class, that government is coming up with a fact checking unit which is going to check whether a particular thing floating around in social media is correct or not. So the issue remains that it can be against the government, and government can simply say that this is wrong, right? So this will lead to a lot of surveillance. And these IT rules have made it obligatory for the OTT platforms to agree with what the fact checking unit has to say. Then the second thing is that the platforms which are giving online gaming as services, they will have to register themselves within a self-regulatory body. First of all, online gaming itself is not something that is being encouraged, especially the games of luck. You know, games of luck, they're not being encouraged a lot by the government. But if online gaming you are promoting on your platform, you have to engage with a self-regulatory body, right? And overall, if the third thing and most problematic thing is, if you circulate any information which is deemed to be false by the fact checking unit, then you will lose your safe harbor that you have been provided. Okay, so the issues with this IT amendment rules and the digital media ethics rules that I showed you about are the same. They are creating a surveillance state. They are hampering the freedom of speech and expression, and overall it is just stifling dissent. Now that we have studied about two acts, you need to give a way forward, you need to give a way ahead. So there needs to be a citizen-led process wherein citizens who are the consumers of this content and even the producers of this content, you know, because content has become decentralized now. So citizens need to be consulted on how this thing should be regulated. Efficient grievance redressal should be there. Parental controls are very important. This is a primary thing, right? Our children have to be safeguarded from any violent content. So parental controls. There has to be independent oversight. That means free from government control. This fact-checking unit has to be as independent as the Election Commission of India, because it cannot be led by the government itself. There has to be independent fact-checking unit. Pluralism has to be encouraged. Harmonious balance has to be maintained. Civil society has to be engaged, and there has to be an overall ethical approach of content creation also. Right? It's not a problem if you are going for a censor board like body for the OTT platforms. That is not a problem. But you cannot stifle dissent through it. You can maintain public morality. That is not a problem. But you cannot stifle dissent through it. So that is there. These are the same issues. No clear definition, no clarity for fake news, removable information, and Supreme Court directives are being violated. And similar way forward here as well. So that's all for today's class. The OTT platform as a topic can come as a part of overall freedom of speech and expression, right? or a separate question, although this chance is very less that you will get a separate question on OTT platforms, but you never know. A 10 marker can appear anytime. So you have the IT amendment rules, you have the digital media code of 2021, the issues related to them, and overall surveillance state and the issues related to that as well. So I hope you derived some value out of this lecture. I've told you about the notes already, and you can just go on for the Shunya books, or if you've made handwritten notes from this, then that's great. So I'll see you all in the next class. Thank you for watching.